Edition of Breaking the Set. Believe it or not, today marks our 200th episode. I know. It's crazy to think that we've already broadcast 100 hours of programming, and each one of those hours cuts through the false left-right paradigm pushed on us by the corporate media. But I haven't only called out the press for its failure in covering real stories. I've also given a voice to those overlooked by the MSM. This show has provided a platform for countless activists, artists, and government whistleblowers to tell their stories. And it's also tackled issues that are never touched by the corporate-run news, like Monsanto, GMOs, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the privatization of water, just to name a few. I featured conversations with some of the most brilliant minds of our time, from Apple's Steve Wozniak to linguist Noam Chomsky. But Breaking the Set is mostly about alternatives to the status quo, which is why I showcase a debate, no, not your typical Democrat versus Republican debate, but one that gave real alternatives a voice. But even with the great team I have making this show happen behind the scenes, it would be nothing without you, the audience, supporting and sharing the work. And you know what? This is only the beginning. So thank you all for tuning in to episode 200, and here's to 200 more. Now let's go, and let's break the set. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the TPP, which is being touted as the world's largest free trade agreement, has just entered its 18th round of negotiations. The problem is that these negotiations are being conducted in total secrecy. But what's even more worrisome is that what is known reveals that the agreement isn't really about trade. You see, the TPP would put into place international laws that supersede state sovereignty, adding limitations to everything from food safety to internet freedoms. 11 countries are current signatories to the TPP, and most recently Japan has announced that it also intends to join. Watchdog organizations have dubbed the TPP NAFTA on steroids and have called the secretive meetings between governments and hundreds of corporate advisors a slow-motion coup d'etat on democracy. So to help me break down why you should care about the TPP and how you can stop it, I'm joined now by Lori Wallach, Director of Global Trade Watch at Public Citizen. Thank you so much for coming on, Lori. So you're an expert on trade policy. How is the TPP different than, let's say, NAFTA, CAFTA, the WTO?
Its scope is much more behind the borders. So there's very little real trade of physical things crossing borders. Rather, it's something like branding it a trade agreement, but really it's kind of diplomatic legislating. So you have trade negotiators who think of their constituency as just the big U.S. businesses, who are looking to bust up regulations in other countries or buy companies in other countries, and they are negotiating changes to all the laws behind our borders, U.S. domestic laws that will affect our day-to-day life, but Congress isn't involved. The other agencies aren't involved. We're not involved. So it's really like a slow-motion coup d'etat via trade agreement.
Sounds terrifying, Lori. A troubling aspect is the secrecy, like you just mentioned. Very little people are in the loop. 600 corporate advisors, though. Why can't we simply get a FOIA request to demand to see the text of this document?
Okay, this is the really irritating thing, because believe me, we tried that in the past. Believe it or not, they are classifying this agreement as a national security issue. Yes, every other country can see the text. Every other country can see the U.S. positions in the agreement, but it's a national security issue if the American public, on whose behalf ostensibly this is being negotiated, actually also got to see the text.
How is that justified? How is that argument justified that it would be, you know?
So there is a legal answer and there is the answer that we're getting. The legal answer is in the courts, because we've challenged this, obviously. They come back with an exception to the Freedom of Information Act, and they say this is the exception on national security. Sorry. So legally, there's enormous discretion for what is within the purview of the executive branch on this issue, and the courts have not been friendly on this issue. What they say is, no country will trust us if we're not seen as reliable in our negotiations. And of course, we think, I think you've got like bigger issues, like, oh, I don't know, the NSA, for countries not trusting you in your negotiations. But alas, it has not won us freedom in court.
And as I understand, there's something called a fast track that could apply to this legislation. I mean, is that something that we should be worrying about now? And what does that mean?
Okay, so this is, you know, if people have been watching your show and know what TPP is and all the threats it would pose to their day-to-day lives, to the food they feed their kids, to their jobs, to internet freedom, to medicine prices, all this stuff that's going to affect us. And they're worried the way we can affect it is to make sure that there's normal procedure of congressional review. So fast track is a very arcane and dangerous procedure that allows the trade agreement basically to go zooming through Congress with no review to speak of and none of the normal congressional rights. So the U.S. Constitution actually gave exclusive authority over trade to Congress. Fast track snags that, drags that, and sends it basically to the executive branch. It lets the executive branch sign and enter into an agreement like TPP before Congress votes.
It's like a dictatorial ruling.
And once Congress finally gets a post facto, it's too late to do anything vote, believe this or not, no amendments, 20 hours of debate, mandatory vote after 60 days. It's congressional handcuffs.
Unbelievable.
Now, Congress has to decide to do this. So we as citizens, every single one of us should be saying to our members of Congress, the founding fathers were not mistaken when they put this into the Constitution. Right. Ladies, gentlemen, do not give away your authority. No to fast track. Tell me, your constituent, you are not going to agree to give away your power. That's not what I sent you to Washington for.
It's certainly something that we need to demand. And let's talk really quickly about this international tribunal. And that's really a really dangerous part about this bill. And what could it do?
So these tribunals that are in the TPP would allow an individual foreign corporation to be raised to the same level as our whole sovereign nation and directly sue our government as an equal status to privately enforce a public treaty. Practically. Let's just say you're the United States government. You decide you're going to start regulating banks better so that they don't crash all of our homes. Great. I'm a foreign bank. I'm now here from a TPP country. If TPP is in effect, you know what I can do? I don't have to go to our courts in the U.S. or follow our laws. You try and regulate me the same way you're regulating the U.S. banks, I drag you to a TPP tribunal. I demand you pay me taxpayer money because you've undermined my new foreign investor rights in the agreement. And if this sounds so crazy you can't imagine because there's no outside appeal and the judges rotate between suing governments and being the judges, 15 of them have 55% of all the cases, of which at this moment there are over 200 right now under other agreements. TPP would add literally 10,000 more corporations that could sue the U.S. So if this sounds too crazy, folks can go to our website, which is exposethetpp.org, and you can read all about this and link to some of the rulings, because there's a smaller version of this in NAFTA.
It's completely insane. I mean, this is almost one of the most important things going on in this country right now, completely under the radar. And let's talk really quickly about a specific example of what you just said. Let's say Japan has mandatorily labeled GMO foods. And if Monsanto, if they join in on the TPP, could Monsanto say that we're not going to apply that ruling?
So if the TPP were in effect and Japan said mandatory labeling, TPP is in effect, then Monsanto says, we're a foreign investor and we have built market access in your country, and now you're going to make us label this. This undermines our investor rights, our expectations to future profits. Okay, Japan, you have to compensate us from your tax dollars for undermining our new TPP rights. It's crazy, and it doesn't matter if Japan has the same law applied to domestic companies. The foreign investors get special treatment. So a foreign firm in the U.S. gets treated better than a business in the U.S.
And I feel like if people knew what was going on, I mean, I know that there's certain members of Congress who can't even see the text. Most people can't see it, but how can we bring this into the light and out of the shadows so we can really prevent this from happening?
It's very fun you say light and shadows, because we call this the Dracula strategy. This is the kind of thing that only lives sneaky in the dark. If we can bring attention to it, and that's what our www.exposethetpp.org website is about. So this is a website that has, among other things, action ideas, ways to get your member of Congress involved, and then we created one-page, easy for anyone fact sheets on all the different ways that TPP will affect your life. Medicine prices, jobs, water services, food safety, chemical regulation, your kids' toys safety, you name it. We have 25 of these fact sheets. So pick the part that makes you and your friends nuts, print it out, modify it any way you want. We've got postcards, we've got funny memes, we've got cartoons, we've got videos. It's basically free for everyone. We want people to copy. We are not pushing copyright. So this is a website we explicitly designed to drag the WTO into the sunshine.
Well, it certainly is something that affects every single person in this country. Lori Wallach, I really appreciate your time bringing the darkness into the light.
Thank you for highlighting it.